Well, staying in the U.S. now, a court in the city of Louisville, Kentucky, has charged an African-American man with assaulting federal task force officers during a rally against police brutality back in September. John Fitzgerald Johnson is the head of a Black militia group. The court says he resisted a group of officers after he pointed his rifle at them in Louisville. Those officers were on the roof of the Jefferson County Grand Jury building, watching over anti-racism protesters. The demonstrators were among a crowd protesting against the police's killing of African-American Breonna Taylor. The allegations come as far-right militia groups have been accused of using violence during anti-racism rallies. Those groups include the Proud Boys, who support President Donald Trump's stance on race, but no criminal action has been taken against them so far. Well, I'd like to welcome two guests to this part of the program discussing the situation. Ms. Elaina Porter, international human rights specialist and activist out of Atlanta, Georgia, and Cecile Johnson from the Pendle Center for Human Rights and Self-Determination out of Columbia, South Carolina. Welcome, both of you, to the program. Well, let me start off with Elaina. Tell me about this particular case and the information that you had. It appears quite odd that this situation, this demonstration you're talking about, took place in September, and it took 3 months for authorities to arrest him when they said that he was pointing his weapon at them. So tell me about that side of things, Elaina, please.
Well, I have attended several of, at least 2 of the formations and the protests and the rallies, and I have been involved in the formations. And Grandmaster J, John Fitzgerald Johnson, he respects the law, and all of the members, he expects us to abide by the law during the formations and outside of the formations. We're supposed to carry ourselves in high character, abide by all of the rules and regulations, and also respect law enforcement. Grandmaster J, before he goes to or sets up any formation, he contacts all of the powers that be, all of the people who are in charge of the certifications for the permits, people who are in charge of law enforcement. It's not a situation where he's just going willy-nilly into these areas, occupying these areas using force. He's gotten a lot of bad publicity concerning the way that he handles things, and it's not true at all. He's very professional on the way and the manner that he carries himself and that he carries the militia. He makes sure that all of the members abide by the rules and regulations concerning militias in the Second Amendment to the Constitution, and as well as local state and county law.
Okay, well, Cecile, your take on this. I mean, if we go back in history and we look at, for example, in the 60s, 70s, and what happened to various civil rights groups or individuals who were effective for Black Americans, or we look at what happened to the Black Panthers, is history basically repeating itself? Do we have 2 sets of laws? We have the white militia. We heard US President Donald Trump supporting them and telling them to stand by. And then we have a Black militia saying they're going to defend themselves because they see more and more what they call racists arming themselves and that they need to protect themselves. And now we see these charges being put against the leader of that group. Your take?
Yeah, this is just COINTELPRO happening again, right? Co-intelligence. And when you look at the history of what has happened, whenever you have a leader who is able to mobilize the people, this is what happens, right? They either try to arrest you, they try to shoot you, they try to smear your name. They use the same tactics all the time. So I don't understand why we're surprised, right? So if it took them 3 months to look at a video to figure out what they thought was a threat, then obviously the time that it happened wasn't a threat, right? Because if it was a threat, they would have taken action. So I just see this as intimidation, okay, and response to the fact that he's been out speaking about some of the actions that we've taken as we filed, a declaration of self-determination.
Okay, well, stay with me. Stay with me on that. I want to get Elaina on this because you talked about self-determination. And Elaina, I want to look at what your organization and what you see is key for Black Americans at this point in time. We have seen, whether it's Democrats in office or Republicans in office, we still have seen, for example, Black men being killed by police and discrimination still taking place in the United States. So what is key in your perspective to change the status quo?
What is key, Sister Marcy, is that now is the time for us to be released. We have been held captive in the United States legally and politically since 1865. We are a nation within a nation. The relationship that we have with the United States government is a parasitical relationship, and we are colonized. The 13th, 14th, and 15th Amendments to the Constitution forcefully annexes us to the polity without our consent. There was no plebiscite vote. After 1865, our ancestors had a right to return to Africa. Those who wanted to expatriate back to Africa, we had a right to set up our own government here, or we had a right to integrate. But the relationship is forced because we didn't agree to it. There was no plebiscite vote, and it's still forced as far as I'm concerned. So in order for us to remove ourselves from the parasitical relationship, we must assert our international human rights to self-determination. We have a right to self-govern. We have a right to self-policing. Under the Decolonization Conventions and under the 1949 Geneva Convention and its additional protocols concerning internal colonies like ourselves, we have rights that we have yet to assert. Okay. And the only way to close these inequality gaps is to self-govern. We have an economy. We circulate $1.2 trillion through the American system, but we don't control it. We have property rights. We have not asserted them because we have puppet leadership in high places that continues to use the colorblind ideology to disguise the fact that we have a right to self-determination, a right to immediate reparations, and a right to self-govern, and a right to self-police. Okay, stay with me, Elaina. Well, Cecile, you're also involved in this right to self-determination. And how are you proposing that this takes place? What has to happen to get Black America there to that reality of self-determination?
Well, under the Montevideo Convention, there are 4 steps to founding a nation. And the first one is a people. The second is a place. So you take out your red marker and decide where we are, and we tend to congregate in certain areas. A government and recognition. So we have met 3 of those where we have the people, the place, and recognition. And what needs to happen is an interim government. But for you to do that, we need to have a plebiscite vote. So the first thing we did was we held a declaration of self-determination, and that was filed. That was on October 1st, 2017. That was filed with the UN Human Rights Commission in March of 2018, and it was accepted. And so we are known officially as the African Descendant Nation. But we are also Afro-descendant nation under the UN, so they're one and the same. So now what we need is recognition. We have sent in a request in 2018 to the Decolonization Committee, requesting that we be added to that list. Because part of the problem is the fact that the world doesn't see us as a colonized people. They think we're happy. Do we look happy to you folks? Come on now. Not happy at all. We're not happy at all. So therefore, we need to be added to that decolonization list. That decolonization list is the list that people were put on, or countries were put on, and then they then had official independence. Okay. Now, we're not asking for independence. We're asking for a free association, which is an agreement with the United States, so that within the United States, in areas that we are majority, we control those areas. Because obviously, with all the crimes against us, if we control those areas and control ourselves, we could decrease that violence against us. Okay, and on that note, I appreciate both of you being with us. Elaina Porter, International Human Rights Specialist and activist out of Atlanta, Georgia. Cecile Johnson from the PINDOS Center for Human Rights and Self-Determination out of Columbia, South Carolina.